Commission meeting, December 2nd, 2011. We are going to pick back up on agenda item number 8 with respect to the commission considering the alternative amending commission policy number 60. That's the policy that deals with, I believe, acquisition of water rights. I didn't know, were we going to have anybody from the department explain the policy, or how did we want to proceed on that? Yeah. We're waiting for the secretary to return.
We go over the protocol on this, question on it?
Why don't, does everybody have a copy of Policy 60? Why don't we at least, while we're waiting, at least go over it. The general, purpose is what we've seen before. Generally, the purpose of the commission. But the specific policy deals with let me just go down. The Director, Department of Wildlife, to the maximum extent practical, shall review water applications submitted to the state engineer for the appropriation of water to determine the impact of wildlife and its habitat. Number 2, if it is determined by the Director that granting the application would threaten or cause drastic modification or severe curtailment of wildlife and its habitat, the Director shall, within 30 days of the date of last publication of notice of applications, file with the state engineer a written protest against granting the application, setting forth with reasonable certainty the grounds of such protest. Number 3, the Director shall advise state engineer and the applicant that such protest will be drawn if, in his opinion, adequate safeguards are provided for wildlife and its habitat. Board of Wildlife Commissioners recognizes the economic value and benefits of long-established agricultural development resulting in part from the use of drilled wells and free-flowing artesian wells. The board will endorse legislation to control the drilling and pumping of new wells that cause detrimental effects on existing wells and free-flowing springs that provide agricultural and wildlife benefits. So you can see when you read Policy 60 that it deals with many of the issues, that we've been talking about. But the types of projects that we're dealing with the Southern Nevada Water Authority are interbasin transfers, very substantial projects. And so I guess the question is do we need to somehow modify this policy to take into account, some of the project that is currently at hand and potential future projects that are interbasin transfers of water from one basin to another. And so Mr. Secretary, did you have anybody from the department that wanted to talk anything about Policy 60? Any kind of background?
Not specifically, no. We're still screwing around trying to get the transmittal letters and stuff. And didn't have anybody except for Elmer, who's working on the other assignment, so.
Okay.
Well, hire more staff. Easier said than done.
Okay. And one, looking at the agenda item, one thing is we don't have to do anything with regard to Policy 60 right now. It says may consider, and so, that being the case, we have in the previous vote already approved the resolution, and so I guess I'll entertain comments from the commission with respect to what is it that you think we should be doing with regard to Policy 60, if anything at all. Anybody have anything? Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It would seem to me like I've read this policy about half a dozen times, and it's signed by an old friend of mine, real old. And it looks to me like that the department's already done exactly what this says. They've filed a protest to start with, and then they went into some mitigation. Is that what they call it? And so now the possibility they may, or they did withdraw the protest while they're discussing this mitigation. Is that correct? No? They didn't withdraw the protest?
The protest is still there. Excuse me,
Oh,
Mayor,
it's-
Director, still there while we're trying to negotiate something for wildlife.
Right. So in other words, this is what's been done already. I don't have enough legalese to just say whether we should add or detract from it, to tell you the truth.
Commissioner Rain?
Thank you. Just basically on the protocol of it is since our policy states if we did want to make any changes, we'd have another meeting, first reading, second reading, vote on it. So, and since we didn't have any, call it support material, possible changes to go with it, we couldn't consider this a first reading. So we could basically deal with it a second meeting. And I don't see. And I guess it'd be more of a question. I don't see it. Maybe somebody else sees it where this is not inclusive enough to situations like the interbasin transfers. I mean, water applications, that's pretty broad. This, I'm thinking that includes this and other situations. So I think it's broad enough. If that's the concern.
Thank you.
Commissioner Drew?
Yeah, my inclination would be to leave policy 60 as is. I mean, it didn't curtail this body from expressing its opinion in the matter that was before us earlier today. I think it makes sense for the department and the director to be reviewing these things because, in all honesty, it's almost a full-time job to do that. So I'm inclined just to leave policy 60 as is for the time being.
Okay. Any further comment, Commissioner Rain?
So we could also consider this as a review of it if we wanted to, I think, because our policy says we've got to review it every so many years. You could call this a review, put a new review date on there, and that's it.
Okay. Well, why don't I, if there's no further comment from any of the commissioners, let me take it out to the public. Any public comment on this this aspect of agenda item number 8? Mr. Wellington?
For the record, Ken Wellington, Elko County. Again, I'm speaking on behalf of myself. The only thing I could see, and we may not want to do it in this, but the opportunity for this commission to also be able to file a protest. Obviously, we have the department filed theirs and the commission did not. But the ability to do that or somehow in writing that when it comes time in the department's filing that we also as a commission have that ability to do that so that you would have more say within that. I'm not sure legally how that would work. but that might be something you want to look at down the road, or administrative, or with the department. Thank you.
I guess in response to that, maybe that's more of an operational, protesting applications is more operational than it is policymaking. I mean, I think, I'm not sure whether this commission has the authority to file a protest. That'd be my knee-jerk reaction to that question. Okay, go ahead.
If that's so, then the policy 60, which I asked you not to change because we don't want to micromanage them, allows the department to do that on your behalf. So if they're managing it on your behalf, then how do you, for example, the protest, if you guys voted today to say that we don't, we want that protest to stand, the department doesn't have to do that. They go on with what they're doing. I guess that's where I'm kind of confused at how that would work. And I think you do have a right to file a protest, I would think. And I think she's looked it up, maybe. Oh, I thought that's what she was doing. I didn't. She might have been texting. She's texting.
I mean, the commission is definitely its own body, and I'll definitely refer to it as the fact that we have hearings, just like here, that are allowed to have
I guess, Vice Chairman Robb.
That's, I think, why this question came up with the director. We can't so far do not have the flexibility to meet the timeline of what
I guess when I run the process, having been involved in this process of protesting applications, it's an expensive process. It involves prosecuting a case against the applicant, and we don't, this commission doesn't have the funding to basically do those kind of things. That's what I see, and so that's why I wonder how that would work. How a commission could ever, really, effectively, file a protest and fully prosecute it like it would need to be. Because the process is in effect litigation, so administrative action.
Chairman Ken Mayer for the record. Yeah, I agree 110% with you. Unless you have staff and you function as operational bodies, we have to rely on, if we miss something here from the commission, we would file a protest. But at least have a discussion about whether we should do it. We're there 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. To be able to do that. And you're right. About a short time frame, sometimes we're catch on something and we have a very, very short time to get it done. And it costs.
Okay.
you're right, it is litigation. When you file a protest, you do have to put on a case. And the reason why is always and we get the notices, and we don't need to have a meeting to file a live protest. So in that respect, that's why the commission.
Okay. Any other? Come on up, Mr. Dixon.
For the record, Paul Dixon, Clark County, speaking on my own behalf. The question I have, as we talk about this stuff, is, to me, the policy 60 is giving the Department of Wildlife the ability to figure out how to disinfect the water, but
point in time for the Division of Wildlife not to protest. And so now you have a policy that comes in play, 5 years down the road that says that, the department needs to be monitoring water applications. My guess is that Policy 60 came about because of the failures of the past, and so at this, we didn't get that bite at the apple, but because of the litigation that occurred, and the Supreme Court ruling that basically gave, that ruled that the state engineer had to start over again. At that point, the Department of Wildlife was able to file their protests, and we basically now are where we are, today. So, I guess the question is what we see here in Policy 60 enough, or should we have? Is there anything else from a policy standpoint that we need to, have the department doing, to protect our wildlife resources in the state of Nevada?
Jeremy and I mentioned solar, wind, even geothermal or oil and gas or mining. We don't have a policy, but all of those, depending on how they're implemented and the public process and the EIS process and the commenting on that, are all things that this commission and the advisory board should be giving advice to the Department of Wildlife, either in support or in addition to what they have. And I don't see us doing that. I know that Ken and his group do it.
Yeah, and I think that's beyond this agenda item, and you're raising good points, but I think, what we're dealing with this particular policy now, what you're really talking about is that we have multiple public land issues that we should be dealing with, and maybe we should have policies for them, but...
or do you have one general policy?
That's what the commission maybe needs to look at, but I think we're now kind of moving on beyond this agenda item.
Well,
So,
that's fine. Thank
anyway. Any other comment from the public? Yes, go ahead.
I just want to kind of clarify my earlier statement. Although the Board of Commissioners felt like we can file a protest, we need to show that you agree with the way, and that's the way to do that is to get water rights. If you don't have a water right that there's sort of you still need to do that before you that right. So you can't just file a protest. You have to have show that you are somehow agreed, otherwise you can't get right. And earlier I said they can, but they still need to show that they're agreed and that you can't.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, I'll bring it back to the commission. Any further commission comments on this aspect of agenda item number 8?
Second.
Okay, we have a, now, does that mean that we're going to be re-signing this particular?
No.
We can leave it as is?
Modifying the review date, I think, is what it would be.
Okay,
Recognizing we talked about it.
okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment from any commissioners with regard to the motion? Seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All in favor, no. All opposed, no. Hearing none. Commissioner Vogler, did you vote?
I was an aye.
Okay, we got unanimous. Okay. Then I'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 9. Sheldon National Wildlife Refuge Comprehensive Conservation Plan Position Letter. Commissioner Drew, Informational. The commission will discuss the letter Commissioner Drew sent on behalf of the commission supporting the Nevada Department of Wildlife's comments on the Sheldon National Wildlife Refuge CCP as presented to the commission, which included additional comments on wild horse management and management of predators on the refuge. Commissioner Drew.
Yeah, I won't take a lot of time. The copy of the letter is provided in everyone's packet as support material. We'll just do it this way for now. I did talk with Mark Freeze, the supervisory habitat biologist for Region 1, who had done a review of the draft CCP Mark indicated to me that most of the department's recommendations had not been incorporated into the draft. And so with the letter, I again reinforced that the commission supported integrating those comments into a final CCP. And then I also listed the specific policy points that were outlined in the motion. And if you look at the draft meeting minutes from last meeting, you'll see what those were. So unless there's any questions.
Do we have any other commissioners that would like to comment on the Sheldon CCP?
Could I make one comment?
Go ahead.
Ken Mayer for the record. We've been very frustrated with Sheldon. They have been somewhat autonomous for a long period of time. You saw our comments on the draft. We got no comment letter back that you received it, that it made any difference. And it basically, for the record, is a slap in the face. And so they have a new manager. We're trying to reach out to the new manager. But I'm prepared to take it up the line to the regional director and to the director of the Fish and Wildlife Service if the behavior does not change. It's a huge resource in the state. I'm not going to stand for one agency snubbing another agency. Unfortunately, they're managed out of the Portland office, not out of the Sacramento office. So it's a little more farther removed. I can't just get in the car and drive to Sacramento. I have a great relationship with the regional director in Sacramento. But I will keep you posted on what happens from this point on. We've been assured that our comments will be taken seriously. The problem that I see here, though, is that our comments didn't adjust the EIS. That's what the whole process was about, was to get our comments in advance so they can make some positive adjustments, and that did not happen. So anyway, stay tuned.
Over the years, I almost get the feeling that when the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is involved, and based on some things that we've seen down in southern Nevada with regard to the Desert National Wildlife Refuge, even some things that I've learned, from the Pahranagat National Wildlife Refuge there in, north of Vegas, is that they don't seem to really have sportsmen in mind in their in their plans, so to speak. And is there, short of what you are talking about, is there anything else that we can do? Is there something this commission can do? Is there something we should be doing with our congressional delegation? Because this seems to be something that is, not just Sheldon, but is, some things down in the Kaufman, in Arizona, some issues down there. So, what do you suggest?
A couple things. I've asked Dad New to take a look at the Refuge Act and see for ourselves what that really says. I mean, there are states' rights, and where the Constitution over everything unless Congress. This very carefully. In fact, we had a closed-door meeting amongst the directors and all the DAGs, looking at the potential of having a west-wide and we probably need to get together and figure out what all the pressure points are and start to exercise some of that.
Okay. Okay, this is informational, so, ooh, it's working. This was informational, so there's not going to be any public comment, but anyway, I think this is maybe the Sheldon and all, all facilities managed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service should be on our radar screen because they are areas where we should have the ability to, do our, where sportsmen should be able to, have same recreational opportunities that everybody else has. Okay, that being it, and no further comment, I'll move on to agenda item number 10, solar development roadmap for public lands, Chief of Habitat Elmer Bull for possible action. The commission will hear a report from the department identifying areas proposed for solar development in Nevada and the wildlife issues associated with those proposed areas. The department may recommend that the commission draft a response letter in support of NDOW's comments and/or assist in the process. And I believe Commissioner Drew has a disclosure.
Yep, just before we get to Elmer, Chairman Macbeth, NRS 281A 420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest. The matter before this body affects my pecuniary interest as the interest of my employer, Resource Concepts. RCI currently has 2 clients who we have a significant interest in this project and are working through the EIS process. RCI is helping both clients prepare material in support of their respective cases, and I have been involved in both projects. Therefore, I conclude that in independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my situation would be material affected by this relationship, and it is because of this, it is a clear case of disqualifying conflict of interest, so I'm going to abstain on any action on this particular item.
Okay, Elmer, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. Again, for the record, Elmer Bull, Habitat Division Chief for NDOW. Just to provide a little bit of a history on the programmatic draft EIS that I'm going to speak of. In December of 2010, the Bureau of Land Management and the Department of Energy published this programmatic draft EIS that addressed solar energy development in 6 western states. It's my understanding that this effort was brought about at the behest of industry and political leaders as an effort to try to streamline the permitting process for the establishment of solar energy generation projects in these 6 western states. As what came out of the massive programmatic draft EIS was, at least with respect to Nevada, was the establishment of 6 solar energy zones in different parts of the state, mostly in the southern part, I should say. Included Delamar Valley, East Mormon Mountains, Amargosa Valley, Dry Lake Valley North, and an area called Gold Point in Esmeralda County. The NDOW provided comments on the draft EIS and expressed our concerns about the impacts of some of these projects on wildlife habitat in general, specifically addressing the large areas encompassed in some of these projects and the amount of clearing of habitat that needs to be done to accommodate those projects. In some cases, these projects can be in the 3,000 to 5,000 and sometimes even bigger acre category, 3,000 to 5,000 acres and plus. So we're concerned about the impacts of those. Because of the nature of solar generation projects, the land needs to be fairly flat. So accommodations are made to make sure that the land is flat when these projects are constructed. So obviously there's a massive amount of vegetation and so forth that's removed in that process. So we're concerned about the loss of that habitat from that particular process. We're also concerned about the possibility of these large projects being an interruption to migration corridors that may be present in the bottoms of those valleys as critters move from one mountain range to another. So we're concerned about that. Also concerned about the infrastructure that would accompany the construction of one of these projects, power lines and roads and things like that that would fragment the habitat even further. Additional concerns centered around potential water use from some of these projects. There's basically two different types of processes or projects that can be constructed. One is photovoltaic, which merely uses solar panels to convert sunlight energy directly to electricity. The other is a solar thermal, which uses a system of mirrors, and which will heat either water, oil, or glycol or molten salt to generate steam, which turns turbines and generates electricity. So we're concerned the solar thermal operations tend to use a great deal of water. So we'd be looking at extraction of groundwater from basins, get back into the groundwater deal again. But we're concerned about the extraction of that water, and particularly in a solar thermal operation. So we provided those comments, and those were our primary concerns with the construction of those projects. We were joined by many people. The BLM received 80,500 comments on the draft EIS. And in response to that massive outpouring of concern or comments, the BLM elected to develop what they call a supplement to the draft EIS, which we have. It in itself is a 400-page document that we have. That was issued in October of this year with a 90-day comment period, and we're currently evaluating the contents of that supplement, and we'll provide timely comments on that. Just a couple items of note that are present in that supplement. The number of solar zones identified in Nevada were reduced from 6 to 4. The total amount of acreage was reduced from 171,000 acres in those zones to 60,395. In the supplement, the Delamar Valley and East Mormon Mountains areas or zones were eliminated from further consideration. So that leaves still the Amargosa Valley, Dry Lake Valley North, and Gold Point as eligible solar zones in the supplement. So we will continue to comment on that and provide timely input into that process. And of course, we're a cooperating agency on it, so we'll continue to be actively involved in it. The process was set up to streamline permitting, as I mentioned. It's our understanding that some members of the solar energy industry are not real happy with this, and that they feel that it restricts them or their ability to respond to the market, and also their ability to maximize transmission line opportunities that are already present. So based on what my staff told me, it's not that an energy company would be allowed to apply for permits to construct solar.
Call, please hang up and try again.
Not me.
If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator. If you'd like to make a call, please hang up and try again. If you need help, hang up and then... Hello?
Hi, Hank. We lost you.
I know we're having a heck of a windstorm here. You might lose me permanently pretty quick.
At your heels
Are
twice.
you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay.
Winds is howling over here.
Okay, Elmer, go ahead.
Okay, anyway, The establishment of the solar zones was intended to streamline the process for industry. That doesn't preclude a solar company from applying to construct a project elsewhere on BLM land. It would just then go through the typical NEPA process, which would be a little bit more extensive. So that's an update on where we are with that. There were others at the solar meeting the other day. Laura Richards was there, and I know Jeremy, and perhaps they have something additional to add, but that's what we have here.
Okay, do we have any commissioners want to comment now, or do you want to take it out to public comment and then come back?
I had some questions for Elmer.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Elmer, the little I understood about what you were saying about that solar, I own a half a dozen of them, but they're totally different than what you're talking about.
Okay.
But mine are battery storage.
Okay.
What you're talking about is direct transmission, all of them.
Correct.
Yeah. You know, Obama's not having too much luck with that right now. And I'm just thinking, I hope there's no public money involved in this. This is all private money that's going to
I'm
build
not
these.
sure of the origin of the money supporting the projects. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah. And it would see you already addressed one problem. You said most of it's going to go on dry lake beds.
In the flatter areas in valley bottoms, yeah.
Yeah. If it's direct transmission, I guess I'm confused why they need so much water.
Well, they use water for cooling in the process, is my understanding, and apparently there's a substantial need for cooling water with the solar thermal process that goes on.
Mine, I just use water to fill the batteries every few months, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Different type of operation.
Commissioner Shrum?
I have a question for you. You wouldn't happen to know, like, locations on where some of these plants might be, like the Armagosa Valley, which covers a fairly extensive area. Would you happen to have a rough idea as to where the plant might be or plants might be?
No, I think this EIS was simply to establish those zones and identify those as areas that where construction could occur.
Yeah.
There would still be a NEPA process that went on if someone came into the solar zone and identified an area that they would want to construct in.
I was just curious because we keep hearing about Armagosa Valley, and I happen to have some property up there. I didn't know if I was going to have to put up for sale signs or just I'm stuck with it.
What I do know, Commissioner Shrum, is that in the supplement to the EIS, the area within the solar zone in Amargosa Valley was reduced from 31,625 acres down to 8,479. So it doesn't cover near as an expansive area as it originally did.
Do we have any other, Vice Chairman?
Do you have any maps of this or any, I attended the Washoe County Advisory Board meeting and comment was limited because we didn't have enough support material. Is there anything that we could get to the people today in the audience? Because
okay, I have the supplement, you know, in my office that's got maps inside there. I don't have any loose maps of the project areas.
okay, because I think you'll see most of the county advisory boards put no comment because they didn't know what they were commenting on. It was just
Okay. And I apologize for that. I thought that the agenda item was to update you on what was going on with the EIS process, and I apologize.
I think they
pay
wanted to
closer
see.
attention.
I mean, everybody had an interest of where this was located. They didn't know if it was next to them or someplace else. And I know there's a solar project going on in Tonopah, and that isn't even covered in what we're talking about here. So.
Right. Okay.
Commissioner Drew?
Just a couple of points because I'm familiar with the project. If you're interested in any of the zones or the mapping, if you put solar PEIS into your browser, it'll bring you to the project's main site, and they have maps available there. There was on Tuesday and Wednesday in Las Vegas, there was a group by the name of Sportsmen for Responsible Energy Development that convened in Las Vegas, and several of us got invitations to participate in that. And there's actually sportsmen from all over the West because this is a West-wide, I think, 6-state project that were there and got to kind of express their opinions on solar and everything else. So it was good to see sportsmen involved on a public land project of this magnitude. We were able to share some thoughts and kind of brainstorm on going forward on even more renewable energy type projects. So those are, I guess, are a couple informative items more than anything.
Any other commissioner questions for Elmer? Okay, why don't we go ahead and take it out for public comment then at this point. Anybody from the public want to comment on the agenda item number 10, solar development roadmap?
Can I say one?
Glenn, come on up. Hold on.
Well, Glenn's coming up. Just one last thing to mention. The comment period does close, I believe it's January 27th. So if you folks in the audience are interested in being involved in the process, that's kind of a key date to keep in mind.
Okay.
Glenn Bunch, Mineral County. I sat on a planning commission in Mineral County, and there's been several people come in showing interest in different areas of Mineral County for solar and wind. One of the things that we found out regarding the question on water, when you have a big solar field, it has to be cleaned to keep it to producing economically and efficiently. And they have to have water and a place for it to go. So when they come in front of us, those are questions that we ask them. Where's your water supply, and what are you going to do with drainage? Because those are things, when you have a major field, they have to clean it. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, bring it back to the commission. Basically, possible action here would be to draft any kind of a response letter in support of Indow's comments. And so I guess the specific question is, do you think it would be beneficial for the commission to do anything on top of what the department's already done?
Well, I haven't seen, the final comments, and as Jeremy alluded to, they're not due until January 27th, but the board's not going to meet prior to that date, so I'm not quite sure how to handle that. We could distribute the comments that we have before we send them. I'm not sure what Ken might.
Ken, Mayor, for the record, are you thinking about a letter of support from the commission?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess a motion.
Just
to direct
possible. I mean, do we need-
staff to develop a letter for your signature to support it?
Exactly.
In general.
If you think that that'll be beneficial, we would, we could have additional, and I guess what we'd have to do, given the timeline, is that we'd have to approve that, and for my signature, and department go ahead and draft it up, and
Yeah.
and
It'd be a letter of support, so technically, it's fairly simple, just giving us direction to do that, and we can.
okay. So basically, what the action item would be is either to do nothing, rely on the comments directly from Endow, or have the be a part of the process, have the commission be a part of the process, and staff Endow, put together a letter for the commission in support of, the comments made by the Endow, I guess
Yeah.
is specifically it. So do we have a motion to that effect? Anybody want to make a motion?
And this is to, the motion would be to what, support Endow's efforts?
It would be a letter from the commission commenting on the solar aspects of the supplemental EIS, right?
Yes.
We're dealing with the supplemental
Yes, this is
EIS.
supplemental. Mhm.
And so, it would, it wouldn't necessarily be as detailed as the comments of the department, but it would be maybe more of, the policy issues and, the habitat fragmentation issues from the infrastructure items all the way to the site-specific, issues and, placement of these projects and, those kind of things too, because it's always been my understanding is that on both wind and solar, a lot of times, the sites, there's multiple sites that can be located for these projects, and if one site is, just as good as another site, but it has less impacts on wildlife, that's really what we're talking about.
Sure.
So,
Mr. Chair, I wonder if we couldn't include the caveat that we'd be opposed to any projects that included public money. If it's a good deal, you got to be able to
I
finance it.
think we're going beyond what our purpose is. That's our taxpayer hat, and that's really what this commission's all about. We're wildlife, and so I think we need to confine our comments to specifically wildlife issues. So, have any kind of a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Ray.
I'm just a little bit worried about a letter on this, just because it would be really vague. I mean, we'd be giving really vague instructions right now. If I had any kind of a draft of something as a guideline or something to go by, but I mean, even like the last letter we did last time at Commissioner Drewcamp, we had reasonably good guidelines to give him guidance on how to draft this. And right now I'm out. It'd be so vague that how do I vote on something that's way out in left field to me?
Well, let me just, this is the way I understand this particular EIS is they are laying out broad requirements for doing solar in specific areas, broad areas. And so this isn't necessarily about, specific comments on a specific project. These are the broad conceptual plans for doing solar in these regions. And so our comments should be equally as broad as to what we feel are the concerns from a wildlife standpoint as to when they are choosing these specific sites. Because isn't the purpose of this to really streamline the process? If these companies come into these areas, then there's already been an EIS that has pretty much streamlined the process for them to allow their project to get approved. And all we need to do is say, when you're doing that, take these wildlife, resource issues into account, and in selecting those sites. Isn't that really what we're talking about?
I think so. Yeah, even if a company comes in and applies to establish a facility inside these construction zones, there's still other NEPA processes that need to be completed. But yes, this is the first step in trying to streamline that.
Okay. So if I could follow up. So that's great. We have a list of those things. I mean, those concerns. I mean, if I have a list of those concerns that the letter's going to contain, and then a letter to go around that list of concerns, I'm all there. I just need the list of concerns.
Elmer, I think you can just maybe go over again the highlights of what the major concerns are. We talked about habitat fragmentation. The power line infrastructure, road infrastructure is coming into the project, plus the actual footprint of the site itself.
Do we have it written somewhere? Besides the broad big document.
Well, we're talking about the potential loss of the wildlife habitat itself from the footprint of the project, for starters. And then there's going to be associated roads and transmission line areas that are also going to be impacting wildlife habitat. We're worried about the disruption of migration corridors of animals as they move from one side of the area to the other. We're concerned about possible consumption of large amounts of underground water in these areas under certain types of operations out there, which of course is lowering the water table and those kinds of things, and possible effects on other water sources in the area. That's pretty much yet what we're concerned about and what we've expressed in the past.
So if our letter directly addressed just the points that were this immediately stated by him, and only those points, then I'd be good with that.
So, I don't know if we've listed them all. Have we listed them all? Hitting the high points of what would be in the letter?
You can write the letter two ways. You can go in the detail of what the major points are, or it's a supportive letter of the department's recommendations.
Yeah, I guess I look at it is that we're a policy board, and so therefore we're dealing more with the broader policy issues, and the nuts, all the details are going to be in the department's comments, and I don't think we need to go into a lot of detail in this letter. I just think we need to just reinforce the major, issues and impacts on our wildlife resource.
And at the end of the day, the department's got some concerns, and the commission says, rah, it acts right on.
Yeah.
You need to consider those, what the department is pushing back on.
Any other comments from the
So
commissioners?
we're going to have something to look at before we actually vote on this?
Unfortunately, because of the timeline that Commissioner Howell, we need to get these comments in by the end of January, and our next commission meeting is until February, so we
I
need to.
understand, but I'm saying, did I hear that we're going to be able to see it tomorrow, maybe? We could vote on this tomorrow?
I don't think the department.
I'm worried about making the 5 o'clock deadline as
Today.
a state water engineer.
Well, we haven't sent that yet?
Well, you can see some missing in action here next year.
Oh, no, that's what Suzanne's working on right now.
And we're sending her instructions as we sit here. So,
Yeah. Give her some coffee.
Commissioner McNinch.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I have to tend to agree. I understand the broad concept. I understand, providing a support letter of some sort in a broad sense. But I think that we can probably defer this discussion or the completion of this agenda item to a little bit later on in our day here. And if we're going to do something like that, it's really tough to work in that arena. I mean, we've got a very amount of interest here, and maybe somebody can blurt something down on a piece of paper for us that we can work with, capture some of the ideas. I mean, we're throwing stuff out. It wouldn't take that long to type something in. I know it's a little extra work, but so that we do have something that we can make reference to. I think that's not unreasonable, and I know it complicates things, but if we're going to go that route, I think that it would be prudent.
Is Elmer coming back tomorrow?
Always hoping not.
Okay.
yeah, it's a 3-hour
I mean,
round
this
trip
is
for
something
him.
that we could defer to, we could defer this agenda item for a moment while that's being done. We can get some of our informational reports. It's something that we've done in the past. It's not unprecedented that we've done that stuff, and bring it back today so it's addressed today. Well, I was thinking today, so that number one, Elmer wouldn't have to come back, but we can address it today and maintain some semblance of our agenda. I mean, even if we'd have had, if we'd have had just a list today, it would have been helpful to know. I mean, I have to admit, it's a little too easy to work with something.
Well, I mean, I need to check to see where we are with the state. What you all agree, whether you send the letter for this is not as important as state water engineer.
Completely agree.
Okay, so I want my chief to go back to make sure that all the bases are touched on that, and then let's see what we can put together. Now, with the other option is to prepare something and send it via email to get input from the commissioners for a final draft. We could do maybe a couple iterations of that.
While they're talking, I'm asked a question. We're spending a lot of time on a letter here.
Yes.
How much
Do we even need it?
extra is that letter going to offer when it gets to the people it's getting sent to?
I don't probably. Thank you.
I mean, yeah. It won't. What I think is it won't have much substance, so they're going to go, thanks for the letter, and go right to his meat. We're sending the fluff, and the meat of the substance is what he's sending, and we're spending an awful lot of time on a letter that is basically going to get passed over as soon as they see it.
And I'm not objecting to do any of the work. That's not it. I just want to make sure I don't have.
So maybe
Certain number of people.
it's not worth maybe the juice isn't worth the squeeze right now. Maybe we need
That's where I'm at.
maybe we need to, defer this conversation to a little bit later on. And I don't know. I understand the concept of getting behind the agency, and I have some things that I'll be talking with the chairman and secretary later on. But we definitely have higher priorities right now.
The one thing we could do is let's focus on the state water engineer thing, and at the end of the day, if we can hack something together, and then you can maybe discuss it tomorrow. Is that possible?
Well, the other thing to consider is that this is a supplement to a draft. There's going to be another version of this down the road, a final that will be, comments will be due at some point down the road, and we're probably talking months. And you know, if we plan it carefully, we could incorporate that into another commission meeting a few months down the road, and then perhaps the comments on the final would have more meaning than the comments on this draft.
So there's still an opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then maybe that makes more sense, because I think it would be more powerful coming from the commission if our comments aren't taken into account. If the comments that are going to be, you know, submitted by the end of April do not get in, then at that point, maybe, you know, further department comments plus the commission could weigh in at that point.
Sure.
Just so we have an opportunity. This is a big issue. I mean, you know, down in Southern Nevada, this
Sure
is a
it is.
big issue, and, you know, we can, we can talk about, you know, well, is it going to be any more, you know, is it going to have any more weight? Well, you know, I would rather have done something, I guess, in my mind, you know, and let these, you know, let the public land management agencies know that, you know, that this commission is, you know, is looking at these issues.
Sure.
You know, there's solar, there's wind, and we got water transmission lines, we got power transmission lines. I'm watching one go up in White River Valley right now, and Dry Lake Valley as it's coming across the highway. And these are big infrastructure projects, and it's, you know, we're seeing habitat fragmentation right before our eyes.
Yep.
And so the more, I just think the more this commission can do, you know, the better. And so if we still have an opportunity, then I'm fine with it. But I still think that this commission needs to weigh in on all these projects.
Okay.
The cabs will also like to weigh in.
Sure.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't want my comments to be misconstrued as not supportive of making comments. I think it's a function of, it would be very helpful to have a little something more to work with, I guess, is really where we're at. I mean, if we make a broad general statement, does that in and of itself really help us with the need to specifically address these issues? And I completely agree, and I think it's very prudent that we be involved with these at a much different level, in support of the agency and as a commission too. But having a little better understanding after a supplemental might come out where we still have opportunity to make comment, I think that there's a little better timing, I guess, is maybe the issue.
Yeah, it would seem to me that perhaps to defer until we are commenting on the final might be more meaningful as far as comment provided. I'm not sure. Whatever you folks want to do, we can try to pound something out.
Basically what this agenda item says is the department may recommend that the commission draft a response letter in support of Indow's comments and/or assist in the process. So the question is what can this commission do best to help the department in the process? And if it's waiting until the end, I'm okay with that. I don't like the idea of not doing anything.
Oh, absolutely. No, I
And so if
understand.
it's better for us to wait till the end and have more of a statement and a more powerful impact on the process, then that makes sense to me instead of being midstream. Okay, I'm just saying that I think that it's one of the duties of this commission in dealing with these policy issues that are going to basically impact, you know, our wildlife resources because of, you know, we have gotten so used to be in Southern Nevada and these, you know, our big valleys, you know, our cave valleys, our dry lake valleys, our Delamar valleys, and all of the valleys in central and eastern Nevada go out there and see absolutely no infrastructure. And those days are changing. And if we want to protect these resources that we have, we need to start doing something. And so that's the question, what's the best way this commission can do that? And so, you know, I have, you know, I'm glad we've had this discussion because it seems to me that what we're zeroing in on is what's the best timing, what's the best way for this, you know, this commission to help out in the process.
Ken, maybe you can weigh in on that as far as the influence of a letter coming from the commission in your experience with this NEPA process. Would it mean more for a letter to come in commenting on our comments on the draft of this document, or more influential on the final comments?
I think that this supplemental is the supplemental, the real one's the DEIS. So comments from the department supported by the commission, I think is much stronger. It has more weight than.
In the DEIS, which is the
Because
final.
that's going to hopefully get changes in the EIS. Because, let's be truthful, with the BLM, we asked the question, has there been in the last 2 decades an EIS has been written that you didn't approve? And they said, oh, yes, yes. The answer was, they came back a day later and said, no, you're right. Once it gets to the EIS phase, it's almost fait accompli. So we need to get the good stuff we want into the actual EIS.
Okay, so I guess I'm confused.
So timing-wise.
Timing-wise, was that now?
No,
or-
I think it'd be fine for the DEIS. This is a supplemental.
Okay.
And so.
So we have
let's
another
see what
bite
they
at the
do.
apple. The better
Correct.
time to do it would be to
The
wait.
DEIS, because then we'll find out what they actually do with the supplemental at that point. Agree?
Okay, so to keep Elmer from having to write a list of things, then it sounds to me like maybe we don't have any additional action item at this point. This is for possible action, but let's keep this. I think you need to keep the commission informed of the process, and when this comes back for the draft, that we then revisit this issue as to what this commission can do. Any commissioners have a comment?
So that deadline that Jeremy talked about is mute at this point then?
Well, no, the department is going to do their comments.
I understand. yeah.
Okay. This commission is going to wait. The process we're in the middle of the process, and we're going to get a better bang for our buck if we wait to make our comments, the commission comments. They'll be more useful waiting for the subsequent draft environmental impact statement.
And then we can do exactly what you suggested. We could draft a letter, put it as support material that you then could see and make a decision on having the chairman sign it.
So you know exactly what I'm going to be signing. Okay? Okay. I think we're done with agenda item 10. Thank you, Elmer, very much.
Thank you.
Get to work on that. Okay, we're now in agenda item 11, which is our regulation workshop. Informational public comment will be allowed for these items. And so 11A, Commission General Regulation number 390, LCB file number R102-10, Inland Navigation Rules, Chief Game Warden Robb.
For the record, Chief Game Warden Robb. CGR 390 basically strikes the current language that's in NAC 488-430. And the reason for that is that LCB no longer uses addresses and phone numbers and so forth to obtain information as a general rule. And that combined with that the federal government moved this process from a public law process to a federal regulation process. So it's now in CFR 33. So that's the reason for this. The new language would read any federal law or regulation relating to inland navigation which is applicable to the navigable waters within the boundaries of this state is hereby made to also apply to all other waters within the boundaries of this state. So basically what it says is all the Coast Guard rules that we adopt, such as the lighting requirements, fire extinguisher, et cetera, are required not only on interstate waters, but on state waters such as Wild Horse, South Fork Reservoir, Perch, what have you. So be glad to answer any questions.
So it's basically a consistency in enforcement. You don't have one set of rules for interstate waters and another set of rules for non-interstate waters.
Yeah, it's consistency in enforcement and consistency in when there's a change in the federal law, it's automatically adopted here.
Okay, we have any comments from Commissioner Rain?
Thank you. Actually, more of a question. The one thing that seemed to be incorporated in the original text and that's not in the other one, new one is a reference to how to get the information on what those federal requirements are. I mean, there at least you had a phone number or something. Do we have? So I could just say, here I am trying to figure out my boating regulations, and okay, what's the federal regulations? Is there a way we can reference that, or how is that done?
That's exactly why LCB required that we take that out. They no longer accept that format. And in addition, we do publish a boating book, the Nevada Boat Act book, that has all those regulations in them. And we distribute that to the public, so they can call here and we can send them a book, or they can go online and obtain that information.
So, in order so following the original format roughly, would it be appropriate to have a reference to all of these may be obtained by calling Endow or something?
It would make common sense that
just
we could do that, but we can't legally.
We can't. That's their thing.
Yeah.
They don't like that.
That they don't like that, and it's like any other regulation we have. You know, we set a deer season quota. In the quota, it doesn't say you may obtain a copy of this. It's known that you can go to Department of Wildlife and obtain that information. And it's the same thing here. We are the boating organization for the state of Nevada. So everything regarding boating laws, boating enforcement, goes through Nevada Department of Wildlife on a statewide basis.
And therefore, your summation of this basically is that LCB really didn't like the original, and they said, and the origin of this is they were the ones that brought this forward. This was not something the department brought forward, is that?
We had to bring it forward because of the change from public law to regulation. And in that process, LCB said that format is no longer acceptable.
So this, LCB's comments, requirements, are really broader than just this regulation. It basically, they don't want any incorporation by reference, because obviously the source of the reference can change.
Right.
It's just more work for LCB down the line and modifying a regulation and having to deal with that process, and for the department as well. And so they're basically just saying eliminate it.
Right.
And so it's not just this regulation. They're doing this in any place where this type of a reference is in the law, they're basically requiring it to be changed.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, this sounds like cleanup.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay. Any other commission comments?
This
Commissioner
doesn't
Howell?
apply to any private waters, though, would it? Private lakes?
If you're on a private body of water, yes, it does apply. All the rules apply to all waters within the state boundaries. The only exception is Pyramid Lake, because it's tribal. So on tribal lands, it does not, technically, it does apply, but technically we don't enforce it, is the best way to put it.
Okay, so it'll apply to a pond on private property. And the issue is public safety.
Public safety.
And, the state's interest in not having people die.
Correct.
Okay. Any other commission questions, comments? Okay, I guess I'll take this out for public comment, see if we have any public comment. Come on up.
John Reed, Washoe Cab. When we looked at this the other night, we're saying, yeah, it's just some kind of little administrative thing. And then we started asking questions like Commissioner Howell, and we're going, wait a minute, what are the feds doing exactly with our inland waters? One of the gentlemen came up, he's pretty knowledgeable, whether he's accurate on this one, but it can lead to, is a navigable water something that I can use with a float tube? And if I have private land, can I keep that guy off it? I just not sure you want to give it short shrift unless you really understand what the ramifications of the law are. And we may be way off base with that, I don't know. But at a first glance, we started thinking about it. We weren't sure that we wanted to support this.
until we knew more about it. So,
Thanks. Any other comment from the public? Did you have any comments to that?
Yeah, again, for the record, Robb, Chief Game Warden. I think I can address some of those concerns. This is different than navigable water. The definition of navigable water doesn't change that. Current law regarding navigable waters is when you have a navigable water going through private property, such as the Carson River does and other bodies of water do. That navigable water between the average high water mark is open to the public. You step out of that, it then becomes a trespass issue. So this doesn't change that one way or the other. This is in reference to boating only. With regards to a private pond and so forth, if the landowner wishes to exclude people from using that private pond, that is the landowner's right. There is no way this influences that one way or the other. That is strictly a landowner right issue that they can restrict access to their property, whether it's wet or dry.
But wouldn't the landowner be subject to these rules?
The landowner technically would be subject
But the enforcement issue?
to the rules. The enforcement issue, the reality is, if we have a private pond and a landowner is out there after sunset with a little boat and the only one on there doesn't have navigational lights, I mean, the reality is the game warden's not going to be showing up to, check that out and enforce that. Unless we have a complaint or something, or somebody dies because they didn't have a life jacket on board. And then, yes, citations or what have you may be issued and may be determined. It's the fault of whoever the operator was for not having life jackets on board, why the 3 kids died or whatever the situation may be.
Okay. Commissioner Schrum.
Yeah, Chief Bonamici, I have a question for you. A lot of us carry the Arizona stamp on our fishing license because we fish, Lake Mead, Lake Mojave. Down in California, we fish towpath. Now, is that going to affect the Arizona stamp?
This is strictly
Something
a
entirely different.
boating enforcement, boating issue. It has nothing to do with fishing, hunting, duck boats.
We're using boats down there, so, but it's just strictly a boating issue.
Yes.
Okay. Because it talks about the annual fishing license.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, any further commission comment? Okay, thanks, Chief. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to agenda item 11B, Commission General Regulation 398, LCB file number R025-11, Interstate Boundary Water License, Program Officer 3, Maureen Hullinger.